So now on to the calculations, starting by the sum over dij when we're actually varying the cosine of I and j. So I'm just assuming different directions for I and j. Again, I'm taking a very large number of particles, and so I could basically assume that I would have a couple of I and j's that are equal in magnitude, but where the angle changes, and another couple where I'm dealing basically with the same kind of situation. So I could basically make an average of the cosine theta first, and then think about what happens next. Now, so I'm going to look at term one. In other words, that's my term one, and term one is simply di dj, what the sum. I'm not going to write the whole thing of cosine theta I and j. Now, if I want to integrate that, if I want to sum up this over all cosine angles, I could think of, the weight of the angles, because I'm dealing with an isotropic medium, is simply the solid angle. Well, I would say divide by 4i, but I'm not calculating an average. I'm calculating a sum. So those angles are distributed over the solid angle. And the solid angle in that situation, again, because the I and the j are not dependent on theta, so I don't have a dependence on the angle, because the medium is isotropic, so it's not affected by the direction. So the direction doesn't affect the magnitude of vectors, because the properties, the physical properties, are basically the same in all three directions. I could simply write it the way I did before, as sine theta d theta d phi, and then this could be pulled to an integral from 0 to pi. Now, obviously, I have an integral from 0 to 2 pi of d1, d2, di, dj, cosine of theta, sine theta, d theta, d phi. Now, this being said, because ultimately the angle theta can be anywhere from 0 to pi, right? It can take all possible directions, and that's basically equal to 2 pi, because there is no dependence on phi anywhere, 0 to pi of di dj cosine theta sine theta d theta. Now, for the integration over theta, di and dj are constants, and then that's essentially 2 pi di dj, the integral from 0 to pi of cosine theta sine theta d theta. Now, a simple trick is to make a change of variables, and I'm going to basically take, in my case, I'm going to say u equals sine theta, which means that du equals cosine theta d theta. Now, the interesting thing is that when you take sine theta, you're going to end up with the integral from sine 0 is 0 and sine pi is 0. And then, so let me write it down as if I didn't notice that. That's 2 pi di dj, integral from 0 to pi, from 0 to 0 of u du. Now, you could make the change of variables u equals cosine theta and du equals minus sine theta d theta, but you're going to end up with the same result, 0. It's not going to be integral from 0 to 0, but the end result is still going to be 0, and that's equal to 0. So the sum of the first term, 1, is 0, and I'm left now with the sum of the second term. The second term, let's state it again, my second term, 2, is simply the sum of the square of the steps. That's a sum over I over the I squared. Now, we've used x for the distribution of the survival of collisions, basically. But that's essentially the same thing. If I want to express that in terms of a of an integral, I'll have to say it's something like the integral of d squared times some function distribution of d's times, well, I mean, dd, right? Okay, so I'm going to replace that by something like x squared f of x dx. But then f of x dx is simply the number of collisions that have traveled the distance x, where the free path is x. So this is essentially the number of collisions dn for which the free path is equal to x. Sorry. Now, the integral should go from 0 to infinity because it's all the possible values of di squared. And then my sum over I of di squared is essentially equal to the integral from 0 to infinity of x squared, and the function f dx is dn, where dn is, I mean, simply the derivative of the previous one, so it's minus n0 over lambda exponential of minus x over lambda. Now, dn is a decrease. It seems to be a decrease, but that's basically the number of collisions that are actually colliding after an increase of dx over x in the path. dn here is basically the number of particles. So in other words, the blue dn is minus dn, and I'm supposed to put the minus sign here just to make sure that I'm taking a positive quantity because I'm just summing them up over the total number of. And then my sum over I of di squared is simply equal to the integral from 0 to infinity of n0, which is the total number of collisions, divided by lambda times x squared e minus x over lambda dx, and that's equal to n0 over lambda integral from 0 to infinity of x squared e minus x over lambda dx. Now, if you'd like to convince yourself of what I'm going to do next, what you could do is make change of variables. You could say u equals x over lambda, and then du equals dx over lambda, and that's going to convert your integral into the integral that's actually calculated in terms of a gamma function. And what you get basically is that after you do a number of steps, you're going to find that the sum of I over di squared is simply equal to n y squared times the gamma function of 3, which is basically the factorial of 2, and that's basically 2n lambda squared. Lambda squared being the mean free path we've calculated before. So in other words, if I want to express the total distance d, I'm going to end up with then now d squared, the second integral is equal to 0, is simply equal to 2n lambda squared. And in other words, that's basically equal to the square root of 2n times lambda. Now, you could think of lambda as the average step, the average di between two collisions. What we're noticing here is that the total displacement from the point where we started. So again, if I represent things, I had a particle here, started from here, it ended up somewhere there after a random walk. D is a displacement. So D is a displacement, but then that's the sum of all the random steps taken in all possible directions until you get to, okay, it's in 3D, I'm just taking it as 2D and I'm taking an example. So the particle goes in random directions, and the average step here is actually lambda. But I'm not taking the average of lambda, I took the average of lambda squared. Sorry, I should say here, should be more accurate. This is d equals square root of 2n of lambda. Now, why is that interesting? Because in principle, if I take n steps, in a specific direction, what I'm going to end up with, so I'm walking straight, well, the distance I travel is usually n times the size of one step, assuming I'm taking equal steps. In that situation, for diffusion, what I'm noticing is that for diffusion, well, the distance I'm going to move away from the point from where I started is actually proportional to square root of n. But then how much time did I take to travel that distance that is expressed in terms of square root of n? It's basically n times the time it takes for each step. So I'm done with the calculations. I'm just going to do one example where we're going to calculate the time, so that you have an idea about the kind of size of, I mean, the kind of time it takes for simple things that look apparently short at the macroscopic level, and you're going to understand the kind of consequences of such a calculation.